upon me.
Well, I can read your bio, but I think it's, I would rather you give it to us and hear it from you.
However, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Jennifer to share the screen, and then like on the first slide, I'll introduce who I am while you're doing that. My name is Gittel Francis. I work at Jewish Family Service, and Jewish Family Service, for all those who don't know, we kind of offer a wraparound service for people. So we have behavioral and mental health services, which is counseling as well as community intervention. So we do have people that come to our outpatient mental health clinic for counseling as well as intensive outpatient treatment, facility. But one of the things that I do as part of the community intervention wing is that we realize that there's a lot of people out in the community that need help, that don't really have, that don't really know what we provide. And therefore, my job is to go and bring trainings specifically around mental health literacy, with the goal of decreasing stigma. So kind of have a new wing as part of our mental health services is to go out to the community. Another thing that Jewish Family Service provides is disability services, case management. We have case management, senior case management, financial aid case management, and disaster case management, career and employment service, Holocaust service, and internship programs. So when we say the word wraparound, it's something that I know I'm very proud of, that the Jewish Family Service doesn't just offer this or doesn't just offer this, but we kind of see people like for the whole spectrum and see how we can help people. A little bit about me. So I've been at Jewish Family Service since Hurricane Harvey. I first got hired as a disaster case manager. And then the year later, I was transferred into the newly developed mental health programs team. There were too many suicides in the Jewish community. I think even one suicide is too many. And a lot of my job was suicide prevention and community mental health literacy trainings, which I was really proud of. And then when COVID happened, the National Council, who runs the mental health first aid program, they haven't found a way yet to do it on Zoom. It's coming next week. So I sort of pivoted into doing community trainings, specifically in self-care, but I've done other ones as well. And I just want to say thank you for being here. And I hope that you get and learn a lot from this. I'm originally from New York. They say New Yorkers are rude. I probably doubt that I am. But I know that New Yorkers do tend to talk quickly. So if there's anything that you don't understand, Jennifer, thank you so much that she said yes to being the moderator. So you can ask questions to her and she could interrupt me and make sure that you guys understand everything that is meant to be understood. And if you have any questions, we could discuss it as well. All right, next slide. Okay, so before we get started, I know that, it's interesting because if I came to you in March of 2020 and I said to you something like, do you have time to learn something totally new? Or do you have time that your entire life is going to be different than the way it is? Your kids are not going to be in school, or you can't see your parents, or whatever it is, I think that most of us probably would have said no. Like, we felt like our plates were full. And I think that on a regular basis, most of us do function with our plates being completely full. Yet here we are 3 months later, and Jennifer and I were talking like how we've all sort of gotten used to this new normal. And what I'm kind of talking to you about is, I know that you've heard about self-care, and I know that you probably know a little bit about it, but I kind of want you to think about succeeding and surprising yourself, that you learned something new. I know I'm excited that I learned how to do Zoom technology, or that I learned how to be at home in a yellow submarine for the last 3 months and still be okay, relatively. And also, are you open to new experiences, in this experience? Okay, next slide. Okay. Oh boy, I think I just lost you. All right, you're small. Okay, so hold on. Something happened to the screen. I don't think it's anything you did. It's probably.
Do you not see the share?
No, I do, but I kind of reduced you so I could see my notes. So now you've been reduced. Okay, here I am.
I'm still here. We're all still here.
Thank you. Thank you for not being reduced. Okay, perfect. So, I think that I want to discuss right now with you what mental health identifiers are. Many times it's so easy for all of us to know all the negative about mental health. If you go on Google, and like it seems as though every single article in the newspapers are talking about how hard it is and how much mental health is suffering and how much, different things of mental health and different needs of mental health that are not getting met. Yet there's not a lot known about what increases your mental health. What are the things that we can do to increase our mental health? So some of the things that we could do to increase our mental health is, personal and professional development, knowing that we could develop personally and professionally, having positive relationships with people. And that can mean work colleagues, that can mean, friends, family, children, the ability to identify and understand and regulate emotions, being, having healthy communications, being accountable for your actions and also taking responsibilities and setting practical and realistic goals. So I think that it's interesting to think about this. And I feel that sometimes, we're in a bad relationship with somebody, or we're not able to regulate our emotions well. And then our mental health suffers because of that. So if you look at, if you look at any little thing could make your mental health, could be a burden on your mental health. And I think it's important for you to also know, not just about what gives you less mental health, but also what gives you more mental health. So this is just sort of a small identifier, like a list of it. Jennifer's going to share the slideshow with you afterwards. So I encourage you to look at it and see if there's, anything else you kind of want to glean from it. Next slide, please. All right. Oh, man. Okay. Hold on. All right. Sorry, this hasn't happened to me yet, but my screen is really reduced and I can't see the slide in front of me. So side by side. I know. I just want to be able to see it. All right. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. All right. Can you share it again, please? Sorry.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. All right, awesome. Okay, so back to what I was saying before. Again, back in March, I thought this was a great cartoon. I love cartoons. Please excuse me. So this was a cartoon, and it's like, I'm not in the mood of human interaction. So I think that many of us probably felt like this a little while ago, and now we're all sort of in the mood of human interaction. But sometimes we're not in the mood of human interaction, and sometimes we are. And I just think that this kind of showed us, what we were feeling like before and what we're feeling now and what we may be feeling like after. All right, next slide. Okay, so I see Rabbi Silk is on, and as a rabbi, I know that one of the basic tenets of the Torah is to love yourself, love another as you love yourself. And there's a story that, a rabbi came to, an individual came to a rabbi and said, I want to learn the whole Torah on one foot. And the rabbi said, you have to love somebody else as you love yourself. And he's like, come on, seriously, it's really just about that. And it's really just about that. And then thinking about self-care, what I want to encourage you to think about is, in order to love somebody else, you have to love yourself first. Basically, what you want to do is you want to love yourself so that you're able to love somebody else. You want to give yourself care so that you could give somebody else care. One of the things that I got blessed with as a bride, I got blessed with, somebody said that you should have an overflowing cup of blessings. And it's something that, we Jewish people also say, overflowing cups of blessing. And what's the point of an overflowing? Because you can't fill from an empty cup. So if you have an empty cup, you cannot give to others. If you don't love yourself, you cannot love other people. So this is just something that I kind of want you to think about, that it's not just something like you have to love other people and not yourself. But in order to love other people, you also have to love yourself, and you have to be kind to yourself in order to be kind to other people, and kind of so forth and so on. All right, next slide. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about common signs of stress. I think that the need for self-care is obvious, but I think that a lot of times people don't know what it feels like to be in distress, and self-care does help people in stressful situations. I want you to look at common signs of distress from the 3 angles, which is the physical, the psychological, and the behavioral. Many times people don't realize that having a stomach ache could be a common sign of distress, or that an angry outburst is a common sign of distress. So these are kind of some things along the spectrum of physical, psychological, and behavioral. So feeling of numbness, you know, having fear, you have a difficulty concentrating, you have a change in appetite, you have headaches, some physical reactions, worsening chronic health problems, anger or short temper, as well as an increased use of alcohol or other drugs. So these are just signs that kind of should be the alert to you that, like, maybe I am stressful. Maybe this is something more to me and that I have to really think about. But I kind of want you to think about it as all 3 on the spectrum, that it's not just about feeling sad or anxious. It's also could be about having a stomach ache or not being able to sleep. Okay, next slide. Oh, thanks. Yeah, if you guys could just mute your screen. Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were asking me something. Another thing that I don't know if there's any parents on here, but some of the common signs in children, again, the physical, psychological, and behavioral. But I think that I want you to look at it also with children. It's a lot about returning to behaviors that they've outgrown, you know, crying and irritation in children. So like if a child has been sleeping through the night and all of a sudden they're not, or when you leave the house, your child is very fearful that you won't come home because, you know, they know that people are going to the hospital with the virus and stuff like that, or, you know, also being, you know, not so safe outside or whatever else it is, and avoidance of doing something in the past, and also a difficulty concentrating and sleeping. And there's something else also that I kind of want to point you out to with, which is another common sign in children, is that sometimes children have hobbies. And I would imagine that sometimes during this pandemic of people being home, people's hobbies have shifted. So if your hobby was going to the gym, or if your hobby was playing basketball in the courtyard, you haven't been able to do that. So I think it's a sign of some distress if the child did not go and find another hobby that they enjoy doing. So if I like playing basketball in the court, but I can't play basketball in the court, I found another way of playing basketball in my house. Or I generally play with Lego, and now I can't play with Lego, but I'm playing table ping pong all the time, and that's making me like I have a new hobby for that. So it's something to look out for with children also, if they haven't really adapted to something else that they enjoy doing as much as they enjoy doing something else. Next slide. So, you know, we all love emojis and we all love graphics, and it's kind of like, how are you feeling today? And I think that all these kind of sum up the last 2 slides about, you know, feeling anxious and feeling nervous, and kind of like, you know, sleep problems, weight problems. Are you feeling quiet or withdrawn? And I just kind of wanted to give you a small graphic so that sometimes I feel like it's better understandable than like a lot of words on the screen. Okay. Any questions so far? Awesome. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about anxiety today, because I feel that anxiety is very common. And I think that there's not a lot known about it. And I also think that it's kind of very, you know, there are things that you could do to help yourself with anxiety. And I know that with the political situation and with the social injustice going on right now, as well as the pandemic, I'm sure that there were a lot of people feeling anxiety. I know I myself was feeling very anxious about things, and I still am. And I just kind of wanted to discuss it with you a little bit about what anxiety is and how you can help yourself. So I want you to look at, if you see the top of the screen, I want you to look at anxiety as a continuum. So you have a mild, moderate, severe, very severe, and incapacitating. So what if you have mild anxiety, or what if you have incapacitating anxiety? It's interesting that my 5-year-old son has a book, and the book is titled My Sometimes Feelings. I mean, I thought it was great, because sometimes I'm feeling sad, sometimes I'm feeling angry, sometimes I'm feeling happy, right? And sometimes I'm feeling anxious. So if you look at it as a continuum, am I always feeling anxious, or am I sometimes feeling anxious? And I think it's a very good way of teaching ourselves, like, I had an angry outburst. Does that mean that I'm constantly angry? It means that sometimes I get angry. Gosh, I really suck at that. I should get better at that. Am I always anxious? Sometimes I'm anxious. So I kind of want you to think about the word sometimes as you look at the continuum. So your brainstem, is the most primitive part of, our brain, and it's there for you during fight, flight, or freeze situations. So anxiety is a typical reaction to an atypical event. I'm going to tell you 100% of people that experience a traumatic event have symptoms of anxiety. It's 100% of the people. 60 or 70% are going to have very severe or severe symptoms of anxiety, but 100% of people are going to feel that way. And it's because it is a typical reaction to an atypical event. It's an automatic brain response. It's the way that our brains are supposed to work. So if we're feeling anxious, we feel that pit in our stomach. It's the way that our brains are supposed to work, all right? And some of the symptoms of anxiety are sweating, rapid heart rate, unexplained rash, nervousness, stomach pain. Like I said, I keep on saying that pit in your stomach. When COVID first started happening, I had this like weird rash. And honestly, I couldn't figure it out. And then I thought it was because I was peeling too many potatoes over Pesach. And then it eventually went away. And I think really when I did some research on this, I realized that it may have been anxiety, and it probably was because it was unexplained. And some of the calming exercises that you could do is, just taking a few minutes to breathe, practicing self-care, which we're going to talk about. And that's why I kind of brought up the slide, because the need for self-care is so important. Releasing your energy. So you have a burst of energy, and how do you release it? Some people release it by going for a run. Some people release it by gardening, but just that that you have an extra energy inside of you, and that you want to be able to release it in a healthy way. Eat something healthy. It's easy for us to turn to negative coping strategies, food, chips, something else that, that kind of works for you. But that's sort of fleeting. And if you go to more of the calming exercises and you do it mindfully, then they will calm you down more. A question that I get a lot, and I kind of want to bring this up when I'm discussing anxiety, is how do I know when to seek treatment? How do you know? And the answer is if your feelings and your emotions interfere with your ability to work, to carry out daily activities, or to engage in meaningful relationships. So I live with anxiety. Before I give trainings, I don't sleep very well. I'm here, and I think I look okay, and I think I'm dressed okay, right? I'm presentable. So my anxiety did not affect my ability to work or to engage in meaningful relationships just because I see you smiling once in a while, and to carry out daily activities, right? So therefore, but if it would impact my ability to be able to do that, I'd probably have to seek help. And one of the things that we say is that if your feelings or emotions affect your ability to live, to laugh, and to love. And I got that line from Janet, who happens to be on the self-care training. Thank you, Janet. So if your feelings affect your ability to live, laugh, and love, okay? So are there any questions about anxiety? Okay, so what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna highlight the self-care part of it so that you guys kind of get an understanding of, one of the things that you can do when you're feeling a certain way. Do you wanna go to the next slide, Jennifer? All right, so let's talk about creating a self-care plan. Who has ever gotten like an expensive item of clothing or like an expensive piece of electronic equipment, right? And what you do is you read the care package. You read that you're supposed to only charge it until it's green or your battery is going to get broken. Or you read that you can't dry clean, that you have to only dry clean your outfit, that, your prized outfit that you wore. Unfortunately, human beings don't come with a care plan. We're not told you have to do this. You have to not hang yourself out to dry, or you do have to hang yourself out to dry, or don't put yourself through a washing machine, or recharge yourself. But if your cell phone battery has to be recharged every day, right? Or if your clothing has to be washed on a certain, in a certain cycle, don't you think that human beings need to have some kind of way to recharge? And you can recharge through sleeping. You can recharge through eating. There are other ways that you can recharge, but that it's not something like instructions for care. I remember when I first brought my oldest son home from the hospital, like I got home to our apartment in Brooklyn, and I turned around, I'm like, they gave this little thing to me. Like, what am I supposed to do with it? Like, there's no self-care plan with like, yeah, feed them every 2 hours, whatever, but that's it. And I think that self-care is also hard because it's something that you have to initiate for yourself. You know, if I called you up as a friend, or if one of your friends called you up and said to you, I'm having a really hard time, you can probably, whatever they need you to do, you're going to do for them, right? But when you yourself are having a hard time, because you have to initiate your own self-care, you have a harder time initiating it for yourself because you think that you're going to do everything else beforehand. So that's just two things that I kind of want you to think about the, like, a daily recharge, as well as initiating it for yourself, because we're going to talk later about a buddy system and how it helps self-care plan. But at the same time, it's really something that you have to really do for yourself, finding time and creating space for you to be able to give yourself some self-care. So, you know, what you want to do is you want to take a break from watching the TV, and you want to take a break from, you know, reading the same news stories over and over again, or watching the same videos. I actually did a trauma-informed care training just today and yesterday. And one of the things that they spoke about was vicarious trauma. And, you know, it's for people that get trauma from watching other people's trauma. And I feel like it used to be that a large portion of people that lived or suffered from vicarious trauma were therapists that heard trauma stories, or let's say people from the news media who had to edit videos of like really, really violent things, and they had to go back and watch the videos over and over and over again until it was like TV worthy. I kind of feel like we have the same thing on Facebook. Like, I feel like the amount of posts that I saw, videos that I did not want to see, even though I had to see them as a human being, that I didn't want to see, that people kept on posting over and over and over again. In retrospect, how do I feel about watching them? I mean, we're human beings, we all have to know, but at the same time, but like, every person had to share, and then every person had to share, and then as well as during the pandemic. So I almost feel like as a society, we're living in a mode of vicarious trauma, and that we have to be able to filter out what we decide to listen to and what we decide to not. So take a break from listening to stories, and not keep yourself glued to the TV or to your phone, to be able to give yourself some time to have some alone time away from everything. Taking care of your body, like we said earlier, meditate, stretching, trying to eat healthy, well-balanced meals, trying to sleep. I think that many times when things happen, we say to ourselves, okay, we're not acting the way that we typically act, but we never stop to think to ourselves, what did I do 3 months ago versus what I'm doing now? So 3 months ago, I'm going to tell you I was on a fantastic diet and I was eating very healthy. Right now, I'm not, right? So, but how much did I differ from my normal, right? How much did I differ from what I typically do? And as long as we could think that and try to quantify that I'm not so off the mark. I'm struggling, I'm at home, I've got my kids, I've got my husband, I've got a lot of things going on, but how much off the mark of where I was in March, and not to create all these kind of like scenarios that sort of in our minds make it worse than it already is. And of course, giving yourself time to unwind, connecting with others, you know, meaningful connections with people. I find that I call my mother more than I used to, just because I'm home and she's home and we kind of have nothing to do. And she always wants to talk to my kids, and then she entertains them. So it's great. But finding a new way to meaningfully connection and community is so important during this time. And if it's not about going to synagogue, and if it's not about going to social events, it's about connecting in some other ways that you could connect with people. Okay, next slide. So I kind of like cartoons. I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for them. But this is sort of what I was talking about before, that your desire to be well-informed is at odds with your desire to remain sane. And I kind of want to think about that, like, how much does our sanity actually mean to us? And do we have to really know every single statistic and watch every single video and know about every single thing that's happening in the world? Next slide. All right, so I wanted to do a little activity with you. And Jennifer, if you could stop sharing your screen, I'm going to share mine now, and then we'll do the activity. I know you guys all love activities. Who's excited? Okay, some people are excited. So something about self-care is that many times self-care gets mistaken for binge watching Netflix, like binge watching it, or like eating an entire thing of ice cream. Or like staying in bed extra and just scrolling through your phone. And that could be components of self-care, right? But if you don't do it mindfully, if you don't do it in a way like, I'm gonna watch my TV show right now because I'm gonna try to relax myself, then the time is just gonna ebb away. I remember when I was a little kid, like I don't say I was cheeky, but I was trying to help my mother, and I saw an advertisement and I said, Mommy, if you go to Geico, you're going to save 15% or more. So I called Geico, and of course, her thing went down by $300. And I said, Mommy, what are you going to do with the $300 now? She says, I'll never see it. It's all relative. And she's right. Unless she took the $300 that she would have spent in Geico and said, I'll buy you a new Game Boy or whatever it was back then, right? But it kind of just withers away. And I feel like it's the same thing with self-care. Unless you say to yourself, I am going to right now invest in my stock. I'm going to invest in Gittel stock in order to make myself feel better. And I can binge watch that Netflix if I want to, but do it as a way that you are putting yourself time to mindfully invest in your stock to make yourself feel better. Okay, so what I want to ask you is, I'm going to play an activity with you. It's not going to be so unfun, I promise you. Here we go. Okay. So what I did is I created a self-care bingo, and it's very easy. You could, I'll share this with you in the chat. I titled it CBY, Congregation Beth Yeshurun Self-Care. And I made it that there's only a few of them that have to sign, there's only 9 of them that we have to work out. I didn't want to make it too challenging for you, but you could do it to yourself. Also, you could do 5 by 5. And the other thing that you could do is you could also customize it. I did this because it kind of reminded me of school and kids and all that. I really like this one because I lived in New England for a bit and it was all about Halloween over there. So Halloween, right? So you could customize it to the way you want, and you could do it for a baby shower and all that, right? So let's do Notepad. So what I want you to do, if you don't mind, is I want you to sort of throw out some things that you do for self-care, or some of the things that you would like to start doing, or some of the things that kind of, what helps you get by when you're struggling?
You want us to unmute and just throw some things out?
Yeah, sure.
All right, well, I'll start because I told you when you came on earlier that being outside is something that helps me relax and help me forget about my emails and the phone and the kids and the whatever else. So I'm watching this on my patio. So that's something I do, is spending time outdoors.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else? I really like that.
Playing the piano.
Okay.
I continue to work out every morning, Monday through Friday, as I've done for the last 11 years, even though I have to do it here at home and I can't go to a gym, can't go to the J.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Marilyn. And it's so nice to see you, on a side note. And not only that, I feel like when we're discussing a release of energy, working out is definitely, I would imagine it's definitely a release of energy. All right. Anybody else?
I would say I'm trying a new recipe because it takes lots of focus and sort of, distracts you, like you have to be in it and paying attention.
There you go. Awesome. I love that. Trying a new recipe. Initially I was so excited about trying new recipes, and I made all the things I wanted to make, like bagels and, all these things that I've been waiting to do. And now it's been a while. I still have tons of yeast. So, but no, definitely trying a new recipe is exciting. Anybody else? Come on, give me something.
We've been playing a lot of games as a family. After a long day of sometimes getting on each other's nerves, after dinner we'll sit, we'll play a game, we laugh, and it's very relaxing, and we forget about being cooped up together and just really enjoy each other's company.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
I got 2 things that I've done during the pandemic. One is I'm taking yoga lessons online from my daughter. And so that makes me really happy, something to look forward to. And what was my other thing? Oh, cleaned out my office, which hadn't been cleaned out in 6 years. And that made me feel really good. Now, I haven't cleaned out the pantry yet because I'm cleaning the rest of the house all the time now on a weekly basis, but that's my goal.
The question is, if you still have a pantry full of chocolate, then I know that your self-care is very good. Anybody else?
I've started painting again.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Anything else? All right, so you kind of get the idea of what it is. Did somebody unmute that want to share something? There was one up there that I really appreciated, that I erased, but that I really wanted to kind of, talk about, was being kind to ourselves. and basically giving ourselves compassion, because there is, you know, we have normal or typical responses because of our brainstem, and then we have reactions to them, and sometimes we're not very compassionate about ourselves, with ourselves. And one of the things that I've been reading, so one of the self-care things that I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of you know, reading, you know, on my own private time, which I don't really, it's a luxury for me, unfortunately. And I'm reading this book by Dr. Susan David, and she's talking about really giving yourself the gift of compassion, to be able to, you know, not judge your feelings, to be able to sit with your feelings and understand where they're coming from and work through them instead of having to, you know, be critical of them. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to copy and paste that and send it to Jennifer so she could share with you. What I did with my self-care bingo is I printed it out and I had it on the fridge, because right, for a while that was the only door we were opening. So we switched our mezuzahs to the fridge, and then we put the self-care bingo on the fridge. But it's really, 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 really just about mindfulness of when you're doing it to do it. And, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Is there any questions so far? So Jennifer, can you continue to share the screen? 56. Okay. Okay, if you don't mind muting yourself. Thank you. So, so I know I discussed this earlier, but I think it's important, especially in organizations, and even among friends, that you share your plan with your friend. And I know that I can ask you, like, why do you think it's important to share your plan with your friend? It's because, you know, they're going to keep an eye on you. And if I call my friend and I say, I'm having a really rough day, and they're like, oh, maybe you have to go take a bath, or maybe you have to go for a bike ride, you know, and it's like, sometimes we're so mixed up in things that we don't realize, you know, what we could do to help ourselves. And sometimes it's as little as taking a 5-minute meditation or doing a 5-minute breathing exercise, but that we're so into it that we can't really, you know, see our way out of it. And also to set up times to check on each other. So if you have a buddy that you know that you can call, you know, when you're having a hard time, or like if she doesn't hear from you in a week or two, or he doesn't hear from you in a week or two, then they can call you and they can say, hey, I haven't heard from you. Are you okay? And also to monitor each other's workloads, to make sure that the people are taking breaks, and to make sure that you're not overextending yourself, and that you're getting enough, you know, sleep, and that you're doing enough, you know, getting enough exercise, and you're sort of filling your bucket in the way that has to be done. So I would encourage each of you to think about a buddy that you could share your plan with, so that they're able to monitor you and make sure, you know, that you're okay. All right, next slide. All right, so this is the part of where the self-compassion comes in. It's important to remind yourself that it's not selfish to take breaks, and that the needs of other people are not more important than our own. You know, naturally, I think many of us, or most of us, are caregivers, but that we have to think about our own needs also. And also working all the time and being stressed out or zoned out or overworked or burnt out doesn't mean that we're going to be making our best contribution. And also there's other people that could help in response. Like, as long as I like, everybody wants to feel that they're irreplaceable. And in a way, each human being is, and that's just the way that, you know, we are. But at the same time, there are other people that could step in if you're having a really hard time. So one of the things I kind of want you to think about, as long as, you know, with the care label and all that other kind of stuff, is that, there's a plethora of studies that show that's what stress could do to our bodies, what stress could do to our lifespan, what traumatic events does to us and just to our lifetime. Because there's a stress hormone called cortisol. And when you have high levels of cortisol, your life is significantly, you know, it's harder. Your heart works harder, all your organs, and they just work harder. So I kind of want you to think about this, that if you say that high levels of cortisol, high levels of stress hormones make your body feel good, what if we said, if we put an influx of positivity, an influx of self-care, and an influx of everything else? Are there documented studies that they could say fMRI, or do they find a neurotransmitter or a hormone that works? Maybe, it could be, I don't know though. But what I want to ask you is, what if it's just a placebo? And you could say that self-care is a placebo, but it makes you feel better. So why not? If so much stress hurts your body in such a way, and there are things that you could do, self-care, deep breathing, meditation, and remind yourself and give yourself compassion, basically gift yourself the compassion of the word sometimes and other kind of things, don't you think that that may help you feel better as well? And if it's a placebo, who cares? It helps, right? People can't really understand, science can't really prove why placebos work, but you know why placebos work? Because it's positive vibes going in you. And the more positive you put in you, the better off we are. Next slide. All right, I know Robbie Silk, you're gonna be so proud of me. So if I'm not for myself, who's gonna be for me? And if I'm not for others, what am I? And if not now, when? And one of the other things that I recently learned, now we have a weekly Pirkei Avot share with my kids. And of course, it's always comes with a Shabbos party and all the treats that come along with it. And, but one of the things that we learned is the saying from another Mishnah is called Lefum Ta'ara Agra. The harder the work for you, the more reward you get. So that chocolate cake in the fridge that keeps on saying like, oh, you know, eat me, eat me. The more you try to squash down your emotions, the greater hold they have on you. So the more you try to squash down your needs and everything else, the more that your body's going to be craving the needs. The more you have to work hard on something, the more reward you are. And now I want to turn to you, and if not now, when? And if you're only for yourself, then who are you? And if you're not for others, then what am I? And if not now, when? And you could turn it to the next slide. Okay, so what I want to do now is, it's right now 8:40, and I want to be mindful of your time. And I told Jennifer it's going to be 45 minutes with question and answer, and I'd love to have a discussion with you if there's any questions. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you we're evidence-based, and we'd like to see, you know, we'd like to see what your feedback is. So Jennifer, if you could stop sharing, because I can't put something in my chat at the same time. Okay, awesome. So I still can't. Oh, so Jennifer, you have the link. So if you could put in the chat box the link for the evaluation, and I'll ask you guys to fill out the evaluation and then come back because I want to discuss. I want to give you some.
Do I have it? Did you email that to me?
Yeah, I private messaged it to you earlier. Okay, I think you're still on screen share. That's why I don't have access to the chat.
Oops. Sorry. I don't think I am.
No problem.
I'm not on screen share.
Okay.
Oh, it's there. It's in the chat. Okay. Sorry. Got it. Let me copy and paste it.
So if you guys don't mind just taking 2 minutes and to fill out the evaluation and then come back to the screen, because I want to share some resources with you and also tell you what JFS has if you do need some help, and then kind of listen, let's do question and answer, or even comments if you'd like.
It's not letting me copy paste, so I'm just typing it. Hold on one second. All right, so that should do it. If you copy and paste that.
You want us to do it now?
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind taking 2 minutes to do it now.
How do I access it?
If you
look in the chat.
If you look on the chat, there's the thing for it. I think it is. I'm going to share with everybody in the chat just in case. And then what I'll do is I will also send it to Jennifer in an email. Well, no, that was the wrong thing. Hold on. That was the bingo card. Let's see this one. It's not letting me copy and paste it either, Jen. Wait, hold on one second. Sorry guys, technical, here we go. Here we go, Survey Monkey. Okay, it's a Survey Monkey, and it will open up to an evaluation. While you're doing the evaluation, I kind of want to end with one thing. If you can multitask, but I'll give you a minute to think about things. Okay, so two things I kind of want to end with. And I think that this is in general with mental health conditions and mental health literacy. There's something called an upstream model. And basically what it is if people are falling, in the water and you're downstream and you're pulling the people out, that are people that are in the water and you're pulling the people out. So that serves one purpose, that you're pulling the people out. And then once, after you do that for a couple of weeks, somebody says, hey, why don't we go up the river? Why don't we go upstream and find out what's going on that's making the people get in the water to begin with, right? So they go upstream and they see, oh, there's like quicksand or whatever it is that's making the people fall in. I kind of look at the same thing that way with self-care and mental health in general. For ourselves, we could pull ourselves out of the water, but if we figure out what we could do for ourselves before we get in the water in the first place, that we have to be pulled out by practicing things for ourselves during this time, it's probably more helpful than having to be drowning in something, and kind of encouraging you to think about it that way with that. And also for all of us that are parents or have other people in our lives that watch us, so there's something called mirror neurons, and a lot of biological psychologists talk about that could be where empathy develops in human beings. I know that if I see you going through something, the mirror neurons in my brain make me feel empathetic to you, and I can feel what you feel like in order to cry. And I think that for many of us that have people that watch our behavior, we want to be able to show our kids or our spouses that those mirror neurons, that we want to be able to mirror our behavior, that if we're kind to ourselves and we're compassionate to ourselves, then eventually they will be kind and compassionate to themselves as well too. All right. Jennifer, if you don't mind sharing the screen one more time, and we're just going to finish up. No.
Oh, whoops, hold on. There we go.
Okay, yeah. So Jewish Family Service has, we have free Zoom support sessions. We kind of went into telehealth right away. And you're gonna have this as part of your slides so that for any individual, for yourself or anybody else, there's 2 free sessions for any parent or 2 free sessions for adult. And then we also have, we are practicing telemedicine. So people are seeing people on Zoom, and many of our groups have transitioned to Zoom as well. Can you just do the next slide? Thank you. These are professional referrals. There's other outpatient counseling centers that are okay. Jewish Family Service is one of them. There's also Legacy Community Health, Hope Clinic, who I worked with. It's a great place. And also there's a National Suicide Prevention. If you are struggling or somebody that's struggling, I wanted to share that helpful information with you. And then the next slide is, these are just helpful links as it relates to the coronavirus and as it relates to self-care and what to do as a caregiver. And what's the next slide? All right, we've come to the end. Questions, comments, and thoughts. If you want, you can stop sharing now. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I work with Congregation Beth Yeshurun a lot, and they're always a really, really great partner with me with mental health initiatives. So I just want to say thank you. And this is the first time I work with Jennifer, and I can't wait to do some more with her. So thank you.
Can't wait.
Sarah, you have a question.
Can we print the bingo card?
I think you can. I think what you have to do is you have to save it first in your documents, and then you can print it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
If you right click it, and then you save the image. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when she sends me the link, I'll play with it a little bit and maybe give you a couple of instructions just to remind you how to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very interesting.
We ask a question?
Yeah, of course, please.
So for me right now, having not left the house since March 12th, okay, I'm in the 65 plus. Sarah, don't I see you, my former student there. No, but seriously, I'm 68. So if I can get my groceries delivered and, you know, everything else, I do everything here. I sit on the front porch, etc. But I think that for me right now, the biggest challenge is trying to figure out when I should venture out. You know, when is that going to be comfortable? And I think it's all individual, but and I can't stay inside forever. This is not this mental thing. It's just about, I made a choice not to leave the house in order to protect myself and the people, you know, the person I live with, and that's what I do. And he has to go out because he works. And so he takes all the precautions. So we're already dealing with that. So I think that's one of my challenge. That is the challenge right now. When does someone like me, you know when to leave the house?
So I can't speak on behalf of the CDC. Sorry. I think it's really, like you say, like it's really something that you have to feel out, that you feel safe about. And I'd imagine that anxiety level of being in the house plays a role, as well as the anxiety level of going out of the house. So I just think that you kind of have to measure what's best for you mentally and physically, and, you know, keeping with all the precautions and guidelines. Because I mean, I hope, you know, there's a vaccine. Listen, I've got 5 kids at home, you know, whatever they're doing. But And I know that I'll feel the more comfortable when there's a vaccine and that everybody's safe, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going grocery shopping. So you are in that, you know, precarious stage and age. And I just really think that you sort of have to do what the CDC says, but also really, really taking care of how you feel like with your mental health, because mental health is really just as important as physical health.
Sure, and agree 1,000%. And I think about myself that, you know, I can mask, I can do everything that's right, but the person that's not masked and is at the grocery store or Walgreens or wherever, and they're not going to put on a mask, that's about them protecting me. What I'm doing is protecting them at that point. I firmly believe that, and I understand there's just so much confusing information out there, but that's really the part, is the lack of faith in that everybody else is going to be as thinking about that, not only themselves, but also thinking about the other. But the quote you just said, it's not just about ourselves. We have to think about ourselves, but we also have to think about others.
Yeah, I mean, you are right. But I think, like I say, it's just going to have to be the way that you individually feel, and that it shouldn't impact your mental health. So, you know, that's very important. Yeah. Good luck. Any other questions?
The bingo card is adorable, but I don't think I get what you do with it. Besides look at it on the fridge.
I think it's really just there as like kind of like a mnemonic device, like sort of like a helpful thing. Like, you know, you're feeling a certain way and, you know, you think to yourself, like, what can I do to help myself? And then it's like, oh, I can take a walk, you know, and sometimes we need that, you know, when you're in the throes of your day, you don't realize that. And sometimes you kind of need that little reminder, wherever it is, you know, practicing gratitude or whatever it would be, just to sort of like to try to give yourself a jolt to remember it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else? All right. So if that's it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Jennifer to share my screen one more time. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
no?
Thank you. No, it's
I
a
was
joke.
ready.
It was a joke. Thank
ready.
you all for joining. Okay. And Jennifer will follow up with you with the slide, and you'll have my email address as well. If you have any questions, I'm always available to, to speak and to kind of, give presentations, whatever you kind of think of. So have a great night.
If you think of other topics, this made you think of something else that you'd like to talk to Gittel about, we would love to bring her back. We're always open to that. And thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully this is one of many conversations we'll have with you.
Thank you.
And I'll get all the information out to you. And again, if you have questions, please ask, please follow up with Gittel. She's an amazing resource for us.
All right. Thank you, Congregation Beth Yeshurun. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.